The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to today's Helpline session with your host, James McDonald.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And I'd like to start by welcoming our participants to our Monday morning helpline session here. And as you guys know, this is our open forum Q&A. Monday morning, we talk about whatever you like, any topics of discussion or game. Any questions that you have, now is definitely the time to do that. We did a great ad clinic session on Friday, and I want to thank those of you that uploaded ads. We'll do the same thing coming up this Friday. And of course, Thursday is our role-playing session, which we always get a big turnout, and we get some new volunteers every time we do that. So hopefully this Thursday will be the same. I encourage you to continue to participate there. Couple things, by the way. We have our Huntington Beach, California boot camp coming up later this month. As a matter of fact, Andrea, I'm not sure you have it up on the screen here, but it's on the 24th. So Friday, it's in about 2 weeks, Friday the 24th of June, and we've got tons of you that have confirmed your attendance. Make sure you do that. We want to be prepared. Make sure we have the right amount of material and stuff like that, and plenty of coffee and whatnot. But it's going to be a great day in Huntington Beach. We've been doing them there for a while. It's at the Hyatt in Huntington Beach. It's a great spot right on the beach. So it's beautiful, and we're going to have a great day and really look forward to your participation. So that is the California boot camp coming up, and I know there are a lot of you that have confirmed, so that's great. Now, having said that, Andrea, why don't we get some questions in our queue here, or anybody with a live working mic that has any topics of discussion, any questions. We can talk about your ads. We can talk about lead conversion. We can talk about setting up systems. We can talk about training. We can talk about anything that you want. The sky is the limit. There was one question that, while you're considering that, by the way, I had an email that wasn't to me, but I was copied on it and thought it was pretty interesting. And I'll just share the gist of it with all of you here for just to sort of get the juices flowing. And basically what it revolved around was, when you're busy, who is it that you're looking to hire when you get busy? And I want to really make this clear that the way that the system is designed to work is that you have to determine what is dollar productive and what is not dollar productive but time consuming. And you must agree that when you're starting the system, you are going to do both. You're going to do things that, although they're not dollar productive, they're time consuming, but you still have time to do the things that are very dollar productive. But eventually that won't be the case. It is so obvious that if you are to do the more of those activities that are high dollar productive activities, it means that you have to you have to delegate away the time consuming non-dollar productive activities, especially those activities that don't require a real estate license. So a lot of you who are newer starting with the system and are a one-man show and are setting the system up all by yourself right now, may not grasp this idea that the very first person that you're going to hire is actually an unlicensed administrative person who has no experience at all in real estate, nor should they, nor do they need to. If they do, wonderful. But if they don't, wonderful. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be doing licensed activity. They're going to be doing administrative, time-consuming activity that has to get done, but doesn't have to get done by you, because it really doesn't make you any money, and it certainly doesn't change the outcome, whether you do it or whether somebody else does it. So when you get that first person, maybe it's even just a part-time person. You have a part-time administrative person. Maybe it's a student, and they are unlicensed, they're paid an hourly wage, right? They're not paid a salary, they're paid an hourly wage. They're not paid a commission because they're not involved in any kind of sales. And what you're going to do is you're going to post an ad looking for this person that essentially says something along the lines of, busy real estate office requires a part-time administrative assistant, real estate experience and asset but not necessary, fax resume too, and put in your fax number. or email resume to and have them email the resume. Don't put in your phone number. Don't put in your name. Don't put in any information like that. It's not a real estate ad. You don't need to have a disclaimer or your brokerage or anything. Just have an email address or a fax number that applicants can send their resumes to. And you're looking for somebody that lives nearby, okay, that doesn't have to commute a long distance because you know they're just going to quit. And you're looking for someone who's clearly an S&C type personality based on their resume, where they've worked before and what kind of jobs they've done. If it looks like they've done a lot of sales jobs, then they're probably a more of an ID personality, which isn't what you want. You want an S&C type personality for this administrative position. And because they're part-time, and because they're paid an hourly wage, this isn't going to break the bank, but immediately what you're going to discover when the time is right to bring on this person is that by offloading a lot of the time-consuming administrative work that you would normally do, it frees you up to work on the things that do make you money, working on lead generation, working on lead conversion, being able to spend more time with clients who are signed to contracts. That's what actually makes you money, but you can't do enough of those things if you're bogged down with too much of the administrative work. So, that was really the focus of the question that was sent in to us over the weekend. And I hope that makes a lot of sense. See, I don't want anybody who's new to be under the impression that when you are busy and you're generating a ton of leads, the first thing you should do is bring in an outside sales agent, bring in another licensed realtor to offset the overflow of leads to. It isn't the first thing you should do, because with all of those leads comes administrative, time-consuming, unlicensed activity. That's what needs to be offloaded from you to someone else. Anyway, cool deal. Andrea, why don't we get started with any questions that we might have in the queue, or anyone that has a working mic that would like to ask any questions whatsoever? We're here for you. So let's crank it up. And by the way, I'll just share with you guys, I've been communicating with Craig here. Tomorrow is the Mastermind Summit in Las Vegas. It's a big realtor mortgage broker event held a couple times a year. The big one is held every June in Las Vegas. They have Tony Robbins come and speak and everybody else. And so again, this year Craig is speaking tomorrow. Unfortunately today he keeps sending me messages. He's stuck on the tarmac for the last 2 hours waiting to take off for his 4 or 5 hour flight to Las Vegas, so he is not in good spirits. You guys would not want him on the webinar here today. He'd be miserable with the current state of affairs. Anyway, I don't know why I shared that, Andrea. Who knows? Maybe it was the coffee. What do we got, Andrea? Let's take some questions.
All right, our first question from Irene. What is the best way to approach the internet leads who are coming for their home estimates? What to send first, property profile, short CMA, or just wait until we can reach them by phone?
Okay, well, you're going to fall into a couple different categories. First of all, there will be occasion where somebody will request an evaluation or an area home sales report, and you will be in a position to immediately follow up with that prospect. In other words, before they've received anything, you'll be in a position where you can follow up with them. You can call them. And I encourage you to do that. You won't always be in a position to do that, but sometimes you will be. So let's take that first scenario where you get a notification in your email that somebody has requested an area home sales report. Okay, now, you're in a position where, hey, I'm sitting in my office or what have you, and I'm going to call this person back literally right now. Now, your mindset might be, ooh, isn't that a little too quickly? No, never too quickly. They're obviously in real estate mode. They're thinking about real estate. They've responded to a real estate ad. They've entered in the information about their home. They've given contact information. Their brain is occupied by real estate. There is no better time to call them than right now. So you pick up the phone and you call and you say, hi, Irene, it's James calling with Craig Proctor's office at Remax Omega. And the reason I'm calling, Irene, is I just got your request on my website for the area home sales report. And I just wanted to give you a very quick courtesy call here and let you know that I am preparing that information, and I'll be emailing it to you shortly. Is that okay, Irene? Now, Irene is going to say, wow, that was quick, or yes, yeah, that's great. But You're talking to somebody whose brain right now is occupied by real estate. They're clearly thinking about real estate because they just requested information about real estate. So that's an easy conversation. It's an easier conversation than if instead you were to speak to that person, you know, maybe a day from now or later on this evening instead. Right? So, but what if that were the case? Okay, so let's talk about that. What would you send? Now, first of all, if you are set up with HDX through Success website or your own IDX, you don't need to send anything because you've got this automated where the prospect is automatically going to receive an area home sales report. In other words, when the prospect goes onto your website and they request the information on homes that have sold in their neighborhood like theirs, it automatically is going to email them properties that have sold that are like theirs. Now, not all of you have it set up that way, and you know, it's better to do that because that way at least it's automated and you followed up with that prospect immediately at their convenience when they wanted the information. So that's a good scenario to do it that way. However, you don't have to do it that way. You can manually send them the area home sales report. But to answer your question, that is what you are sending them. You are not giving them a value for their home because you have not seen their home. What you are sending them are homes that have sold like theirs. So ideally, if you could send 6 to 10 properties that have sold most recently like theirs in their neighborhood, that's the area home sales report. Now, when you call them back, instead of saying, I'm preparing to send, you would simply say, I'm calling as a courtesy to let you know that I did email you an area home sales report of properties that have sold in your neighborhood. I hope that's okay. That's your script. So the script is either I'm preparing to send or I did prepare and send. One of the two. You're either preparing or you have prepared and sent the properties, the information, the area home sales report, the whatever. It is irrelevant whether you have done it or whether you're preparing to do it. But remember this. What you send is important. Like you want it to be good, but remember, it is your phone conversation that's going to help the prospect. In other words, the information that you send them is not going to give them an accurate determination of value of their property. Your phone call, though, will help determine whether that's something that they really need. So if in following up with that prospect, you determine they're looking for something much more accurate, and you could even use that language. Listen, if you'd prefer a more accurate evaluation of your property by looking at your home, not only could I do that, but more importantly, I could point out some inexpensive tips, some things to do and not do to further increase the value of your property to make it more appealing to more buyers. Also, we can go over a net sheet so you'll know exactly what you'll have left in your pocket when all the various closing costs are incurred. It's an absolutely free appointment. You're never obligated to do anything whatsoever, but that would give you a much more accurate idea right now. What would be preferable to you? Days, evenings, something this coming weekend? What would be best? That's an easy one. Okay, so anyway, I hope that helps Irene in answering her question there, Andrea.
Yes, I think it does. We'll go on to our next question. It's in audio form from Francie Martinez. Your line is open.
Hello, Francie. No.
We cannot hear you, Francie. Your mic is not working. They did type in their question. I'll go ahead and read it now. So far, 99% of the ads generated by my Facebook and Google AdWords go to answering machines. I don't leave a message until about the third try of calling them back. Is it appropriate to send an email? If so, is there an email script?
No, they're not going to reply to an email. Here's the deal. Is first of all, let me just go through the sort of the checklist for calling back prospects. Okay, number one is this. It is not out of the ordinary that somebody who's available to take a call would let it go to voicemail. Okay, let's first of all have everybody agree that's true. Let me repeat that. It would not be out of the ordinary that somebody who is available to take a call elects not to take the call, but rather to let it go to voicemail. You guys would all agree that's true. It's not that I'm not available. Sometimes I'm not available, but often, even though I am available, I would elect to let a call go to voicemail. Now here's the question. Why would I elect to let the call go to voicemail? Well, in large part, it's because of the caller display. In other words, depending on who is calling me is going to dictate the likeliness of me answering the phone. If it says blocked number, I ain't answering the phone. If it says, Joe's carpet cleaning, I'm not answering the phone. If it says 1-888, whatever, I'm not answering the phone. If it's an out-of-state area, if it says, somebody's calling me in California from Florida, I'm not answering the phone. I'll let it go to voicemail. In other words, based on the caller display, we make assumptions as to whether this phone call is worthy of us answering, or should we just let it go to voicemail and then we'll figure out whether it's important enough to call them back. That is how we do it. So in other words, what shows up on your phone is pretty critical. Now let's think about this. There's nothing we're going to do to get everybody to answer the phone, but there are things that we can do to get more of them to answer the phone. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that what displays on their phone when we call, and you can simply call your provider, your carrier about this, is a local phone number. All right, your local phone number needs to show up on their phone. That way it doesn't look like an out-of-state, out-of-area telemarketer or some sort of solicitation. It looks like a local call from a friend or somebody that they know. A local number shows up. So, here, if the area code was 760, well, that's somebody in North County, San Diego calling. That's a local phone call. It doesn't look like a solicitation, which is always out of state or 888 or blocked or private or some other number that clearly identifies it as being somebody I do not know. Okay, so first of all, that's what you're going to make sure. Now, what you can also test is this, having your name appear. All right, just like your last name. So in other words, I call you and it says J. McDonald and a local phone number. Here's the bottom line. Your brain doesn't see that and say, oh, that's a telemarketer calling me. That's a salesperson calling me. It looks like it's a private call from a person, a personal call. You are far more likely to take a call that is personal in nature than a solicitation or an unwarranted call. So the likeliness of you answering that call from J. McDonald from a local phone number is far, far more likely than a private number or a blocked number. Okay, so let's all agree with that. Okay, so that's something that you're going to try. Okay, now the next thing is this. It is very easy to look up somebody's name or whatever information they left you to see if you can get another phone number, if you can get a second phone number. And it takes 10 seconds to simply Google. Forget about any of the websites that exist that do a really good, thorough job, like Being Verified, whitepages.com. There are a whole bunch of them. Forget about that. Just Google. If you Google what information you have about somebody, you may find that you'll get a phone number attached to that person that is different from the phone number that you have. If you have two phone numbers for one person, you've just doubled the likeliness of reaching that person. Okay, so these are all of the things that you're going to do. Now, I would recommend this. Calling them 3 times is not enough. It isn't enough. Do not leave a voicemail after 3 times. If you told me, well, I might call them 10 times, that would be a different story. There have been numerous occasions where every single one of our superstar students will tell you that they turned what was a prospect that would have been given up on into thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in commission from somebody that otherwise would have been given up on because they actually reached them on the 5th, 10th, 15th attempt and converted that prospect into tens of thousands of dollars in commission profit, right? So don't give up on the prospects that easily by leaving a message after 3 attempts. Honestly, it isn't enough. What you also might want to consider is this: when you're attempting to reach the prospect, what's your system? How do you manage that? Do you say, well, I call them back when I get a chance, and then I might call them back the next day, and then I'll call them back a couple days after that? That's not the best way to do it. The way that you need to do it is your attempts need to be concentrated close to the time that that they requested the information, and then it becomes less frequent as time goes on. So in other words, maybe the very first day they request the information, you're going to attempt to reach them that day 3 times. The next day, you're going to attempt to reach them 3 times. Then the next day, maybe you attempt to reach them once or twice. So that's the way it works. You can call them at different times that way. You can call them from different phone numbers, right? You can work in different attempt methods. Here's the bottom line with all of this, okay? And I know some of you are listening going, well, it sounds like a real pain in the butt. Here's the deal. If you do a really good job with this, you will reach upwards of 80% of the leads that you generate. That means 20 to 25% of the leads that you generate that have perfectly good phone numbers, you will never, ever, ever speak to those prospects ever. It's built in. You'll never reach them. That's if you're doing an amazing job. You will reach 75 to 80% of the leads that you generate. That's an outstanding job doing the things that I outlined. Now, fortunately, that's plenty. That's plenty. If you know exactly what to do and what to say with the 75, 80% of the leads that you reach, there's plenty of appointments there. Plenty of appointments to keep you very, very busy and grow your business to whatever extent you want to grow your business, to 500 deals, 1,000 deals a year. There's plenty there. Whether you aspire to do that or not isn't relevant. You could. So what we need to just do is we need to systemize when the leads come in. How are we going to get in touch with those 75 to 80%? And we're not going to dwell on the 20, 25% that we never talk to. We're going to attempt to reach them, but we're not going to dwell on it. Now, here's one other thing I want to point out. When you have a prospect and you've attempted to reach them a dozen times and you've been unsuccessful and you've tried everything, do not delete them from your database. Don't delete them. Leave them in there and leave in the notes every one of your failed attempts to reach them. Because I'll tell you, that prospect might request information again further down the road. And it would be nice to know that this is somebody that you've already attempted to reach on dozens of occasions unsuccessfully. That doesn't mean that if and when they request information in the future, you're going to ignore them, but at least you know what you're dealing with that prospect. Listen, the only reason we would turn ourselves inside out for any one prospect would only be if we didn't have any others. Okay, so think about that for a second. The only reason we'd ever get bent out of shape about one particular prospect is because we didn't have any others. But if every day you're generating a couple of prospects, then they would take priority over the one dude that is elusive, not a biggie. So that is the deal. We're going to do a really, really good job with the leads that we do reach, and we're going to make sure that we're highly skilled with our lead conversion using the universal callback script and such. Okay. Good question there, Andrea.
Our next question from Carla. What do I do with my leads when I'm on vacation? Just call them when I return? I'll be on a canoe trip for 10 days in September and hate leaving everyone hanging while I'm gone.
Well, you have your laptop on your canoe, right? That would be comfy. I'm kidding. Okay, so here's the deal. First of all, you need to set up your system so that every lead, in other words, every prospect that requests information receives the information. It's not relevant whether you are the one that sends the information, but think about this. The prospect needs to receive what they requested, and they need to receive it from you. Doesn't mean that you did it. It means to the prospect, you followed up with them by providing them with the information that they asked for. That's what needs to happen. So you've got two options here while you're paddling around in your canoe. You can automate it so that when someone requests information, automatically your IDX, your HDX sends them properties, whether it's a list of properties or an area home sales report, or your website is set up so that when someone requests a free special report, it automatically sends them the report. You can set it up so that when anybody requests seller information of any kind, it automatically will at very least send them an email from you with a seller report. You've got a dozen different seller reports. It doesn't matter. Send them a couple of different seller reports. But make sure that every single prospect receives information that comes from you and automate that through your website so that even though you're paddling around in your canoe somewhere having a great life, the prospect, as far as the prospect is concerned, you followed up with them by providing them with the very information that they were looking for, or at very least helpful information that came from you. Okay, so that's number one. What is your other option? Well, your other option is to have somebody else send information. So you could show somebody, you know what leads typically come into you on a weekly basis. If you're gone for a week, what information are prospects requesting? How do you pull off and how do you provide this information? You could pay somebody else to do it for you. I prefer door number one. I prefer option number one, to automate that process, since it is 2016 and we do have the technology to be able to do that effectively. That's really your best option. Now, when you get back from your canoe trip and you're all sunburned and mosquito bitten and you had a great time but you're happy to be home, all you're going to do is you're going to follow up with the prospects, bearing this in mind. To the prospect, you did follow up with them at their convenience when they requested the information. You were Johnny on the spot and you provided them with what they were looking for. They don't know that you were off on a trip. To the prospect, you followed up with them at their convenience. Now they're getting a phone call from you that says, hey, it's James calling from Craig Proctor's office at RE/MAX Omega. The reason I'm calling today is because I received your request for information last Thursday on my website, looking for an area home sales report of properties that have sold in your neighborhood. I just wanted to give you a quick courtesy call here this morning and let you know I did prepare and email some properties in the area that had sold. I hope that's okay, Mrs. Smith. It's a pretty easy, straightforward conversation. Now, it's not like Beth is going to say, well, it's about time I heard from you. No, you'll never hear that, because Mrs. Smith did hear from you. Last Thursday, Mrs. Smith heard from you. She got an email from you automatically, she didn't know that, with the information that she was looking for. Okay, so this is a very, very simple and straightforward solution that we can take care of by doing it this way. Hope that helps.
Our next question in audio comes from Lee Bricky. Your mic is now open.
Hey, Jim. So I've heard Craig talk about when you send the information, you want it to be unbranded. So it's okay when you get a request for.
Well, wait a minute. No. When you send the information, it is far from unbranded. It's the opposite. When you send the information, it is branded to you.
Okay.
Listen,
okay.
The only reason we're ever unbranding anything is to offer information, like in an ad, because the prospect is going to be scared away by asking a salesperson for information. As soon as that prospect asks for the information, from that moment forward, 100% everything is branded to you. Okay? Do not misunderstand. Craig, very, very clear. The purpose of running unbranded marketing campaigns is so the prospect focuses on the information as opposed to the salesperson. But once the prospect asks for the information, then the unbranded ads have done their job. They've caused a prospect to raise their hand in a non-threatening environment, raise their hand, ask for the information, give up their anonymity. Now we can brand ourselves to the information that the prospect requested. Does that make perfect sense?
Perfect sense. I was misunderstanding that, and it's been a tassel for me to send the IDX stuff that I needed to send.
The IDX stuff, any information that is sent through your IDX should come from you.
Okay.
Now think about it. This way, when you follow up with that prospect, the information came from you. So I'm able to say, it's James calling, and the reason I'm calling is because you requested information on my website for a list of homes with pools. They just got an email from James, right? So It's kind of like making sense now. I'm the person that you just got an email from with the information that you're looking for. Okay, not only that, but watch this. If you look at the cover letters that we send, they are heavily branded to Craig Proctor. Well, in your case, to you. Enclosed, please find the free special report that you requested, okay, if you're going to send stuff out by mail. Right, there's a cover letter, and it's branded to you. The only instance where where we would not brand something that we've sent to a prospect that's already identified themselves is if we were going to send by mail a free special report. If you're going to email it, the email comes from you. But if you are going to mail information, then you want to mail the information in a plain white number 10 envelope just so that it gets opened. But as soon as it's opened, everything inside is branded to you. Okay, so just sort of compartmentalize why we would do it that way. The purpose of unbranding is to get the prospect to respond to the information because it's non-threatening. That's it. Once they've responded, then we can say, hey, it's us that is providing this information. We become the providers of information, not salespeople. All right, great question. Who's next, Andrea?
Our next question comes from Greg. He says, I set up my farm in the neighborhood that I live in, the city of Orange. The homes range from $300,000 to $1 million. I also farm in the Costa Mesa area since that's where my brokerage firm is located. What is your input for where to set up our individual farms?
Okay, well, I got to say, the way that you're doing it isn't very scientific. In other words, you're choosing your geographical target areas based on convenience, where you live and where your office is, as opposed to where the opportunity is. So one of the things that Craig has shown you on several occasions is the reality program, which hopefully you have access to. And what the reality program allows you to do essentially is basically dig deep into the statistics on MLS. You would agree, if I were to ask you right now, looking at MLS, is it true that there are neighborhoods in your marketplace where more homes sell than other neighborhoods in your marketplace? Is it true that there are neighborhoods in your marketplace where there's very little turnover? That is true. We are going to exclude those areas. We're certainly not going to target those areas. We are going to target the areas with the highest activity, where there is the most opportunity. But we can break it down even further than that. We can look at areas where, based on market share. In other words, there are areas where not only there's lots of turnover, not only are there lots of sales occurring, and there's high demand, but if you look at the market share of the realtors in those areas, there is no dominant realtor. That's an opportunity. That's a light bulb that goes off and says, okay, wait a minute. So there is no dominant company or dominant realtor in this particular high turnover area. Okay, that's a huge opportunity as well. But here's the bottom line. Suffice to say, we are going to select the geographical target areas. You can call them farm areas if you want to. We're going to determine those areas based on science. What is actually occurring in those areas is going to cause us to choose them. We're not going to choose them based on convenience or our knowledge of the area. We're not going to choose them even based on the price of the properties. If there's a high-end area where nothing sells, then that would not be a fruitful target area. We're going to target the areas based on what the data supports. And what data we're looking for specifically is this. Where are the most number of homes sold? Not listed, not where they sit on the market, although that's probably not happening in your marketplace. We want to look at where is the inventory? Where are sellers selling? What are the areas where people primarily live there for 3 to 5 years and then they move? Those are the target areas where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck. If we knew these are the 5 neighborhoods in your marketplace where on average people live there for 3 to 5 years and then they move. They're kind of like, maybe they're like starter homes, right? Where, young families move, they live there for 3 to 5 years on average, and then they move up. That's a perfect target because you know that you're going to get tremendous bang for your buck in those particular neighborhoods. But we have the ability to use science to determine accurately, and the reality program can break it down in so many different ways so that you can determine the best areas to target. Now then your question becomes, okay, so when I figure that out, now what? What do I do with that information? Well, you're going to use a number of different different approaches, but the best is, of course, direct mail. You can use direct mail to target those particular neighborhoods using every door direct mail or bulk mail, and you can target those direct neighborhoods by crafting a message that calls out to that particular area. You know, your orange home may be worth more than you think. Find out online, right? We can call out to the very audience that we're targeting in our messages, and then test different messages and determine which one is the best. But you know what? If for $150 you can send out 750, 1,000 direct mail postcards with a great message that targets that particular neighborhood or area, you're going to get some really good bang for your buck every other week that you send it out. So I hope that helps in sort of straightening out and clarifying who and how you're targeting.
Okay, our next question comes from Kennedy. Can you please go over how to convert Z-buyer prospects to a listing appointment?
Okay, I know we've said this many, many times before, but here's the bottom line, okay? It doesn't matter what the prospect requested. It doesn't matter. And nor does it matter whether the prospect requested buyer information or seller information. You're not going to convert them as a seller if they're motivated to look for their next home. Okay, first we have to understand the purpose of the phone call is to determine the timing and motivation of the prospect. We're not going to assume anything. We're not going to assume that this is a seller and we need to set up a seller appointment, because maybe they aren't. How about this? Maybe they want to find a home before they do anything with their current home, right? You don't know that. So your offer to help them sell their home would fall on deaf ears. It would be completely ignored by a prospect that says, I ain't selling my home. I'm looking for another one. And when I find another one, I may or may not sell my current home. So the purpose of the script is to determine how you can help them, or even if you can help them. It's not to already have in your head, I want a listing appointment. It's not going to work that way. Okay, now, here's the second thing that you need to consider. The reason that Craig calls it the universal callback script is because it really doesn't matter how you came to follow up with the prospect. All you know is this. The reason that you're calling back that prospect is because they accessed information from you. That is key. If they're a Z-buyer lead, they responded or requested or accessed information. When you call them back, you need to reference you. I'm calling because you requested information on my website. I'm calling because you accessed information on my website. I'm calling because you were searching properties for sale on my website. It doesn't matter what it was. The bottom line is this. They were the ones that initiated your phone call by their actions. All you're referencing is what they did, and what they did might vary. You requested a free special report. You showed up to my Sunday tour of homes yesterday. I'm calling because yesterday you were looking at our home on 123 Maple Street on our Sunday tour of homes, and I just wanted to let you know that I've got additional information on that property that I've sent to you. By the way, you folks planning on making a move in the next 3 to 6 months. It doesn't matter what the prospect requested or what they did. They all did something. You're going to reference that. So if it's a Z-buyer lead and they were accessing properties for sale, you're going to reference that. If they're looking for or requesting free special reports or lists of properties or area home sales reports or online home evaluations, you're simply going to reference what it is the prospect did, because that is your reason for calling them. Now, once you've established your reason for calling them is because they were accessing this information, now you're in the universal script. By the way, are you thinking about making a move in the next 3 to 6 months? If you were to move, would you be staying here locally or moving out of the area? Do you own or do you rent the home you live in right now? Would you prefer to look for your next home before you buy something? Or would you prefer to look around and find something first? Do you have a realtor to help you when the time is right? Right? A prospect is a prospect is a prospect. All we want to figure out is how good they are. How appropriate is it to book an appointment? And what appointment would be appropriate? So that is why, companies like ZBuyer and so many others, they hire us to help them show their customers, realtors, how to convert their leads. Because, of course, if you don't know what to do or say with the leads, they're going to appear as though they're, no good. And that is exactly what happens. And if you generate enough leads and you believe they're no good, well, then you're going to call them up and say, hey, I'd like to cancel my service. And they, of course, would say, well, why is that? You say, well, because the leads suck, of course. And it's not that the leads are of any kind of low quality. It's that the fish just don't jump in the boat, cook and clean themselves. They don't do that. We have to be highly skilled, not moderately skilled. We must be highly skilled in conversing with prospects in a way that establishes their timing and motivation. Not highly skilled in talking to people and having a conversation about whatever. We need to be highly skilled in conversing with people and determining their timing and motivation. Otherwise, we don't know whether we're talking to a nice person or somebody who's truly motivated to buy or sell. That was a good question. All right, what's next, Rhea?
We have a hand raised from Allison Happel. Your line is open.
Hello. Hi. Morning.
Hi, Alice.
Hi. How are you? My question is, recently in Los Angeles area, it's very hot, the market, and we give 2 offers. We couldn't get the ball, and so I'm just going to think to send the area a mail. I have a bar, and when I make it the mail, so I put a sell USB on the mail. It's okay?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So the gist of what you're telling me is this: super hot market, and you want to design a USP that would compel a seller in a hot Los Angeles market to respond. So what we want to do is we want a USP that would benefit somebody considering selling their home. Okay, now, if it's true that in your marketplace the market is super hot right now, then we can't establish a USP that says we're merely going to sell your home. Every home sells, and they sell quickly. So that's not going to be a very compelling USP. What we could do is we could talk about 2 other things. Either, number one, we could talk about the amount of money that we will guarantee to get them for their home. For example, in a super hot market like that, we could create a guarantee that said something like, your home sold for 100% of your asking price guaranteed, or we pay you the difference. Right? That would be very powerful USP. And you could do that because as long as they list their home at market value and they mutually agree on market value, they can list it at the top range of market value, but they can't overprice the property. That's all. As long as they do that, you're going to get asking price for their property. As a matter of fact, you're going to get more than asking price for their property. So that's a safe guarantee to make in a neighborhood where homes are selling for over asking price with multiple offers. That's an easy one to make. Now, that's one approach you could take. Create a USP that focuses on the amount of money you're going to guarantee them for their home. The other approach you could take is you could talk about the buyers that you're currently working with who are looking for properties. See, one of the fundamental principles behind Craig Proctor's system is the principle that buyers want houses and sellers want buyers. And it is absolutely no more complicated than that. Okay? So in our case, if we're looking for a seller, what is it that sellers want? What would really compel a seller? And the answer is buyers. They want buyers. And that would be true. I mean, that's pretty universal. If I have something for sale, what I want are buyers to buy it. Now, it is true that I'm only going to sell it to one buyer, but the more buyers I have, the more demand there is for what I'm selling, and the more valuable it becomes. That's pretty obvious. So if you're able to craft a message that talks about the 135 buyers that you're currently working with that are that have, that are qualified and have established that they're immediately looking for a property for sale in the area, we know that sellers understand the value of buyers, and the more buyers, the more valuable what they have is. So you have two different approaches that you can take here. You can either essentially advertise buyers, or you can advertise a guarantee that talks about the amount of money that you're going to get them for your property. Let me recommend this, okay? I recommend that you have a conversation with your coach about these two options and come up with two different strategies that you can test one against the other, whether it's using direct mail or whatever medium you also decide to test. But that's a conversation that you want to have with your coach.
Okay. Thank you.
So thanks for the question, Allison. Good one. Let's go on to who's next, Andrea.
Yeah.
Our next question comes in the form of chat from Daniel. It says, James, is Google better for more practical prospects versus Facebook social prospects? Will the same ad in a newspaper create better quality prospects?
Yeah, well, you're not doing either or, you're doing both. Okay, so in other words, the idea is you might start by doing just one, but ultimately you want to have multiple pillars of lead generation supporting your business. We don't want to have all of our leads coming from one thing. We want to have leads coming from 6 or 10 different things. So, and the question of will they generate different qualities of prospects? Absolutely they will. The medium will, but so will the ad itself. In other words, watch this. If I run a print ad that says, distressed sales, bank foreclosures, great deals, no money down, I'm going to generate a certain kind of prospect that would respond to an ad like that. If on Google I ran an ad that said, upscale luxury properties, free list of executive gated community homes starting from $1.5 million, I would generate a much better quality of prospect. So even though the mediums are different, the message is going to determine what prospect I'm generating. So the idea is this: you need to test different messages in different mediums to determine which are the best, which yield you the best response. But ultimately, you want to have multiple streams of lead generation. So you're going to generate different prospects from different ads, from different offers, from different mediums, but using them all is critical. Now, I'm not suggesting that you use something that doesn't work, but they may not all work equally, but you don't want to get rid of something that works just because something else might work better. Okay, so it's kind of complicated to say it that way, but it's true. Okay, watch this. It doesn't matter that something works better. You want to be diversified in where your leads are coming from. So if you have an ad that you run every day on Google, and every other day it generates one lead, don't stop running it, right? If you have another ad, though, in print that generates a lead every single day, that doesn't mean you say, well, that's better, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to cancel running my ad on Google. No, the idea is both. The ads aren't all going to work equally as well, but collectively, if we have direct mail, we've got online advertising on both social media and search engines. We've got online ads on real estate specific websites we're generating leads from. We're running some print advertising like editorial style ads, for example, maybe some remnant space ads or local newspaper ads. We are generating leads from signage. We're also encouraging and generating referral business leads as well. Collectively, we've got half a dozen or more mediums that are all collectively contributing to the leads that we generate every day, every week, every month. Now we have an extremely stable lead generation platform that our business is based on. And no one thing is going to make or break our business. It's stability that comes from a diversity of leads. So I don't want to discourage you from testing and using all forms of medium. All I want you to do is test different offers and establish which one generates me not only the most leads, but more importantly, the quality of leads that I'm looking for that I can actually convert into business. All right. Who is next, Andrea?
Our next question, it says, James, if the person you're calling back is not there and someone else asks who you are, what should you say?
you should say who you are and the reason that you're calling and ask, and then immediately ask them if there's another contact number for the person that you're looking for. So let me give you an example. I call Andrea because I'm looking for John, and Andrea answers the phone and says, well, who's this? And I say, oh, yeah, it's James McDonald calling with Craig Proctor's office at Remax Omega Realty. The reason I was calling is because John had requested some real estate information from us, and I was just following up with his request for that information. Do you have an alternate number for John, maybe a cell phone or another way that I could reach him? Now, the worst Andrea could say is no, try later. That's the worst scenario. I might say to that, oh, are you John's wife by any chance? And Andrea says, I just happen to be. And then I say, okay, well, I'd rather talk to you than talk to nobody. So I can say, okay, well, as I said, John had requested some real estate information that I sent along. Are you thinking about making a move in the next 3 to 6 months? But, I mean, again, this is just communication. It's how normal human beings would speak to one another. So you're asking for the person that you're looking for. If somebody else answers, you can give them a reason you're calling. It is true. You're not bending the truth. You're following up with their request for information. By the way, do you have an alternative number? Is there a cell phone number that I could reach John on? And what if 5 out of 10 times Andrea gave me John's cell phone number? Right, now I can call John and I can say, hey, I spoke with Andrea, your wife, and she gave me your cell phone number. I'm following up with you on your request for information on the whatever. Right, this doesn't have to be, remember, we're not cold calling. Not cold calling anybody. We're only following up with those that have first accessed information from us. If they didn't start this, we ain't calling them. So we always know that we can fall back on. If you're ever thinking, oh, I'm doing something wrong, we can always fall back. Remember, buried, in the back of our mind, the only reason I'm calling you is because you requested information from me. Had you not done that, I would not be calling you right now. I'm only following up with you as a courtesy because you requested information from me. And when you that is the foundation of this phone call. It handles every objection. The only reason I'm following up with you is as a courtesy because you requested information from me. It completely disarms any kind of, so somebody else answers the phone, the wife, the husband, whoever, somebody else in the household answers the phone. Why are you calling John? John had requested information from me on my website in regards to properties in the area on the golf course. And I'm just following up with John on his request. Do you have an alternate phone number, maybe a cell phone number for John so I could reach him about that information? You can't be mean to somebody when they just told you, hey, listen, your beloved John, he's the dude that requested information from me. I'm calling as a courtesy because he wanted me to. He requested information from me. Nobody has to ever feel like you're doing anything wrong in having these conversations with prospects. And as soon as that light bulb goes off and you realize that's so true, that's right, all of a sudden you become absolutely awesome at making these conversion calls. Doesn't matter who you talk to. Good question.
Okay, our next question. Does a picture of the home we use in our Facebook campaign factor into the clicks leads generated?
Yeah, they absolutely do. And that's why it's a great test. Actually, last Monday, I guess it was, Andrea, we had Christy Fillion from Success Website. And there was a lot of information that she shared that I found really helpful. One of them was this. We talk about the picture that we include in our Facebook ad. And how, yes, you can use a map, but there are certain offers where they have extensively tested photographs of properties. And there are some that work better than anything else. So, listen, the best marketers don't assume what will work. They test. And all they do is they say this, I'm going to test one approach versus another. In this case, I'm going to test one picture versus another. Identical ad, identical offer, one with this picture, one with this picture. I'm going to go with the winner. I don't care what the winner is. I don't care which one is better. It doesn't matter to me which one is better. I'm going to let the response dictate what I do next. And that's what a good marketer does. They get rid of what doesn't work and they just do more of what does work. They don't judge it. They don't pre-decide what is going to happen or what is the better approach. They test. So your answer is very, very simple. there are all kinds of different pictures or images that you can use to test. One of them will be superior to the others. You just don't know which one yet. Now, we have a good basis as to where to start based on the past, but ultimately your prospects will decide. For this ad, when you run an ad that offers a free list of golf course community properties, what picture works the best? We don't know. You're going to test it, and you're going to find that there is a picture that is more appealing than another. Everything else, all the other variables are identical in the ad. The only thing that you changed was the picture, and it yielded you a better response. More people clicked on the ad with that picture than another. That's what you're going to use from now on. Simple. All right, what else do we got, Andrea?
Okay, Marilyn is asking another Facebook question. What are the best time frames for running ads on Facebook? She's been running the online evaluation to a specific set of customers in a zip code that she's picked. So far, after 1 week, 0 responses, and she's spending about $20 a day.
Well, you want to get on the phone with Success Website to analyze this, okay? So, in other words, the message clearly is not appealing. All right, if no one's responding to the message, then it's not appealing. You could run it for another week if you wanted to, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to get exactly the same response.
Now, she did add in that she's getting 322 visits, I believe, or clicks, I should say.
Well, first of all, we have to establish whether that's real, whether that is really happening, whether you're getting that many clicks. Often, it sometimes can appear as though you're getting clicks, but when you look, they're sort of automated. So in other words, they're not real human beings that are really doing that. So you got to look at all this stuff. Here's the bottom line. You need to have a conversation with Success Website, provided, of course, they're the ones that are helping you and run these ads, because we have to establish what you're offering right now is not appealing to prospects. Either it's not appealing in the ad in the first place, which may or may not be true, or it's not appealing enough that when they click on the ad and visit your landing page, that they're actually requesting the information. So one of the two things has to be looked at, or two of the two things, either the offer that's being made in the ad, or the mechanism by which they're requesting that information on the landing page on your website. We've got to look at those things. I would start with the ad. Now, asking what time the ad runs isn't really all that relevant. And as a matter of fact, if you ran the ad and established when the responses came in, well, then you would know the best times. So in other words, if I run the ad all day today, and I know that all of my responses came between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the evening, well, I just got my answer. Now that's when I can run the ad. That's when the majority of the clicks on the ad and the majority of the responses came. Well, then I've got my answer. I tested the entire day. I know when the responses came in. Now I know that those are the times that I can target to, I can put my budget towards running the ad during those peak times when I'm going to generate the most eyeballs and the most response. But first things first, we need to craft a message that is more compelling. So provided it's Success Website that are helping you do this, get in contact with them because we need to analyze this a little bit. Listen, if you had 300 people that clicked on what is my home worth, and 300 people clicked on it, individual people, and 0 of the 300 asked for the information, then something's wrong, right? In other words, those really aren't 300 people that did that, because you would get, out of 300, you would get some. It might be a small number, but you would get some. If you got 0, well, then that tells us that there's something more happening than that. So Success Website can determine this. And it does get kind of technical, but this is their business. And as you heard from Christy last week, they do this all day, every day. So, get on the phone with them and get it sorted out, and then you can hit the repeat button and leave it alone. Okay, Andrea, let's take one more for today before we wrap it up.
Okay, this question, could you please recommend the best providers to prepare an initial instant home evaluation?
No, I can't recommend the best home evaluation. It completely varies. And also, that's a multifaceted question. In other words, are we talking about information that you provide to somebody that's requested this information, or are you talking about when you actually go on an appointment for a home evaluation for a seller? Is that what you're referring to? So, because of course in that instance, you're going to use the listing presentation, okay, which details everything that you do. If you're talking about what do I send them, it isn't relevant, okay? The fact of the matter is you're going to send them what they requested, which is an area home sales report. You're not ever sending anybody a home evaluation that gives them a value of their home without seeing their home. It would be highly irresponsible for you to do that without seeing their home. So this is why when somebody requests a home evaluation, you are not sending them a CMA. What you're going to do is you're going to provide them with what we refer to as an area home sales report. Okay? Do not prepare a CMA. Your CMAs are for appointments that you go on. And there are any number of great programs that provide CMAs with relevant comps and the information attached to that. We're not talking about that though. We're talking about what information is provided when somebody requests an evaluation. And the answer is we are only going to send an area home sales report, which are homes that have sold like theirs in their neighborhood. Now, what if the prospect says, well, this isn't very good. This isn't very thorough. I wanted something better. Is there any way that you could provide them with better, more accurate information? Can you think of anything that you might recommend? I can. How about an appointment to see their home? Right? It's perfect. You want them to say, well, I wanted something more detailed. I was looking for something more accurate and more specific. Heck, I've got an idea. Holy cow, I just had a brilliant idea. Why don't I come and take a look at your property? What would be good, days, evenings, or weekends? That's the way it's supposed to work. So you don't want to send them a detailed CMA. Okay? What you want is you want to provide them with the information that was offered, which is an area home sales report, homes that have sold like theirs in their area most recently. Provide them with that information. Don't give them a price or any breakdown like that. Then follow up using the universal. The ones that are most motivated will want something more specific and accurate. That's when you swoop in with your offer and say, well, if I can take a look at your property, I can provide you with much more accurate analysis of what your home would sell for today. Perfect. It's free. There's no obligation. And you book an appointment. Okay, Andrea, I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody else for joining us. I can see here that you've got our schedule up on the screen of our upcoming webinars and events coming up in the month of June. Make sure you all upload your ads. Make sure you participate in the role play session on Thursday. And we've got some of our students actually are going to be in Las Vegas for Craig's talk tomorrow. We're doing a panel there, so that's going to be great. There'll be several thousand in attendance, so that's very, very exciting. And we'll look forward to that. And we're also looking forward, as I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar here this morning, to our boot camp, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time on the 24th in Huntington Beach as well. Those are always a lot of fun and really great. So look forward to seeing everybody there as well. So Andrea, thanks so much for your help today. Do appreciate it.
My pleasure, James. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a wonderful afternoon, a great week ahead. We look forward to speaking to you all very soon in your next training session. This officially ends the webinar for today.